Governor Ron DeSantis has decided to propose laws that would punish protesters with death in some cases. And if you don't believe me, here are the details of what he's proposing. Again, this is just a proposal, but it gives you a sense of where the governor of Florida's mind is at. Under the new criminal offenses section established by the would-be Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act, DeSantis declared it a third-degree felony to obstruct traffic during an unpermitted protest, demonstration, or violent or disorderly assembly. Notably, the next clause purports to remove liability for injury or death a driver causes if that driver is fleeing for safety from a mob. You guys can recall self-defense has been cited as what Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old in Kenosha, Washington, was basically carrying out when he decided to murder two protesters, one night. We covered that story in great detail. And I guess as long as you just say or cite that you're defending yourself, you were worried about a mob, well, this type of proposal would basically clear you of any liability if someone gets hurt or if someone even dies as a result of you maybe, I don't know, driving your car through a crowd. So DeSantis's legislation would also criminalize the destruction of monuments and purports to attach racketeering liability to anyone who organizes or funds a violent or disorderly assembly. DeSantis also seeks mandatory minimum sentences for striking law enforcement officers. So for instance, if a protester is found guilty of throwing objects at a police officer, under this proposal, if it becomes law in Florida, the perpetrator would have to serve a minimum of 6 months behind bars.
Okay, so this law has two giant problems with it. Problem number one is it's a massive violation of freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, and couldn't be a bigger First Amendment problem. So if you're doing a protest that Republicans don't like, now they're gonna make it illegal. These are from the guys who claim that they're in favor of freedom of speech. Preposterous. They hate freedom of speech. And Republicans hate our Constitution. They want to be able to say racist things, homophobic things, hateful things. But if you just want to do a protest saying, hey, can you please stop killing us? They say, oh no, that's it, throw their asses in jail, okay? I hate freedom for left-wingers, for black people, for minorities, etc. So just own up to it, Republicans. You're totally and utterly full of crap. If you were actually a freedom of speech advocate, look at what we did. We, as much as we can't stand Ben Shapiro and the others, we said, yeah, just let them speak on college campuses because we actually believe in freedom of speech and we're not worried about their speech. They're idiots. It's so easy to defeat them. So Dave Rubin, anybody worried about that guy's speech? So I'm worried about his jokes. I mean, that could do damage to people. But when it comes to actual freedom of speech and the government regulating it, where it's a real First Amendment constitutional issue, Republicans are nowhere to be found except on the opposite side. Yeah, don't let them protest, take away their freedom of speech. But it's even worse. You want to talk about cancel culture? That's what you guys constantly talk about? Well, now that you're saying, yeah, you can cancel their lives by running them over with a car. It's not like the right wing hasn't done it before. Remember at the Charlottesville Nazi rally, they ran over a left wing protester. So this is the governor of Florida going, yeah, I kind of like what the Nazis did there. Let's see if we can make that legal in Florida. And now the second giant problem with it is, you guys are going to try to enshrine this in law so that you could punish people, but only if they're part of a mob. Okay, wait a minute. What if it's a right-wing mob? My guess is yeah, my guess is you're not gonna call any of the right-wingers who show up with weapons a mob, but if black folks show up to peacefully protest, my guess is you are gonna call them a mob. You are. This law is built for selective enforcement. I've never seen a law more clearly designed for selective enforcement, which means it gives prosecutors and the government the ability to say, do not apply it to people we like, right-wing white people, okay? But apply it and take away the liberty of anyone we don't like, black people, Latinos, minorities, left-wingers, etc. And by the way, if a right-winger murders them with his car, let him go. So that's the state of the Republican Party. And if anyone else in the media was honest with you, they would level with you with what this law means. Instead, sound of silence.
Yeah, and look, there have been right wingers in other states that have proposed similar legislation and then backed away from it when there was enough backlash. If you can recall, North Dakota wanted to propose something very similar when it comes to individuals supposedly blocking the road and basically clearing drivers of any liability if they choose to run over the protesters as they're blocking the road. That didn't go anywhere. But look, stories like this just remind me at least of how important it is to have a Supreme Court that's actually interested in protecting the constitutional rights of Americans. Because if you have this overwhelming right-wing Supreme Court, well, I mean, it's not guaranteed that they're gonna side with this type of proposal if it makes its way to the Supreme Court, but it's more likely. And it's terrifying to know that our rights, our protections, our ability to assemble and protest and speak our minds and hold people in positions of power accountable, all of that is really under threat because I think we now know without a doubt that there are politicians in this country, along with right-wing voters in this country, who don't actually care about our constitutional protections. They don't actually care about protecting our rights or our lives. And so if you have the courts completely stacked with these insane right-wing judges, it really does put everything we have in jeopardy. So really looking forward to this whole Supreme Court battle that's right in front of us.
Well, Anna, you don't have to worry about it because it likely won't even be a battle. The media has begun. They've started to make excuses for Democrats surrendering already. So we'll cover that in other stories, but it's so frustrating. And we're gonna talk about it in the context of Romney in a second too. By the way, guys, we are covering voter registration day, and we're gonna do that right after this segment. So please share the stream. Important to get the progressive message out. Very easy to share and like the stream. It makes a big difference.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.